Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first Impact Advantage webinar for 2018. And I guess the very first thing that I would say is you notice the change in the name. And the reason I've changed the name from Recruiting Insider, Matt and I scratched our head on that a lot and, choosing the name in the first place. But it's hard to keep me nailed down and just into recruiting. And so, we talk about recruiting here. We talk about retention. We talk about management, leadership, life skills. And so, frankly, we thought we'd call this the Impact Advantage. And so that makes it a little more broad and covers a little more of what this really is. And I truly believe that this creates an advantage for people that take these principles and put them in place. So I think we did have a little mess up with scheduling and the announcement of the whole webinar and everything, but we'll have that straightened out moving forward as well. So having said that, I also, as of January 1, I celebrated 20 years in business as Impact. I started Impact over 20 years ago. 20 years and 18 days now? 24 days. Well, I should know that because today I turned 53 years old as well. So I guess this is a big deal to having this today. And I don't take lightly those of you that are here with us and the support that this industry has been to me and how well it's treated my family. So thank you guys for that. I also want to take an opportunity to welcome our supporters, and just HireRight has been a continued supporter, and thank you for the birthday wishes, folks. I really appreciate that. And I think it's Shanta. Shanta, I hope I'm saying your name right. Thank you so much for that. And HireRight, thank you so much for sending this announcement out like you do every month, and great support that you guys are of the Impact Advantage. And of course, Ramsey Media Works, and Matt is on the call with us. Matt, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, thank you, and happy birthday to you.
Well, thank you. Holy cow. Jeff just said that I am old. I didn't know, he didn't realize how old I was. Hey, I don't feel a day over 35. I'll just tell you that part. So I'm feeling, shoot, it's just another day. Because I'm having a great time and just catching gears as we go. So somebody said, oh, man, when you turn 50, it's the downhill side. And I said, good, I'm ready to start coasting a little bit instead of having to push so hard. And so we are just flat out, feel like I'm just catching a gear, Matt. And with that, we're going to talk about 3 magic bullet points. And these 3 things that I'm going to talk about on the call after you do your part is every time I've had one of these 3 items interjected into a recruiting call, it almost guarantees that you hire that driver every single time or recruit the driver. So I look forward to getting there in a moment. But hey, the other thing I want to say before we get into the agenda is the American Trucking Association Safety Management Council Driver Recruiting, Retention, and Wellness Committee. Many of you know that I'm the chairman of that committee. Folks, we are truly wanting to influence our industry. And what bigger issue do we have in our industry today than driver recruiting shortage, driver retention, and driver wellness? And so if there's, to join the Safety Management Council, it's like $350. And you don't have to be a member of the ATA to be a member of the Safety Management Council. So, some of you are like, man, we can't afford the ATA dues. We'd love to have you as part of the ATA as well. And some of you are, but you don't have to do that to be on the council, is my understanding. And so it's like $350. We need your input in the council. So please consider joining the council. If you have questions about that, shoot me an email. I'll connect you to Brian Lagana. He's a great guy doing great things with the council, and we're just really wanting to address the top issues of our industry. Having said that, Matt, Let me see if I can get some slides to move here. Oops, I may have hit it twice. Oh, there you are. Look at that.
Well, thank you.
What are we going to talk about, man?
So, thank you, and welcome everybody to 2018. You know, one of the things that people continue to ask me is what are you seeing? What's new? What's working? What do we need to? How can we improve on our strategy? And without a doubt, social media is becoming more of a recruiting strategy, and I think that it will continue to do so as we move into 2018. And so I wanted to put kind of three things that we need to do to make our social media strategy better. And it's really how to listen up. And it's three ways to kind of listen up, you know, when it comes to social media. And so the very first thing that we have to do is we have to hear the rhythm. And what I mean by that is we have to listen for patterns and repetitions. And so if you go out and you review your social media and look at what some of your drivers are commenting about, some of your past drivers are commenting about, and some of your potential drivers are commenting about, you'll see some things that start to be repetition, and they're bringing up the same points. And so we have to go out there and we have to look for those things in order to start making a change. And maybe it's something simple that you will find, and that it would be an easy change to make on your side to make that go away. If it is something that's you know, something that your drivers or potential drivers are actually requesting to change. And so the first thing is we've got to hear the rhythm, and we've got to listen for patterns and repetitions. And so the other thing that we have to do is the second way we have to do it is we have to pay attention to an earache. Earaches tell us when we have problems. You know, whether that be unfortunately, my daughter has a double ear infection right now, so it's kind of timely. But you know, she knows that there's a problem, and so she's able to explain to us, hey, you know, I got something going on. Well, similar to that, you have to listen for earaches through your social media. People who are saying, hey, you know, this is one of the problems, or this is one of the critiques that I have, you know, about the particular program. Maybe I left. Some folks are just out there to hear themselves talk, and I understand that, and you should too. But if there are things where we can truly change and make a difference to make your program better, then it's worth listening to. And, you know, I always tell people that are starting out on social media that you will have some negativity out there, and it's okay. It's okay to address those. And a lot of times you'll see your drivers, your current employees, actually step up and answer some of those things for you and go to bat. So it's a very impactful way to be able to engage your current workforce and drivers, as well as, you know, again, listening to what some of those complaints and criticisms. And finally, I would suggest that you go out there and you follow your unfriends. And what I mean by that is competitors. You know, your competitors are out there doing social media. Chances are they are anyway, and especially getting into 2018 with more and more companies moving to this particular platform. Go out there and see what some of your competitors are saying and doing, and maybe what some of their complaints that they're receiving, and that will give you kind of that leg up when you are talking to potential recruits, to be able to talk and highlight about how your company does a better job. Not ever mentioning names, you don't have to, but you can certainly go out there, research, see what some of your competitors are doing, learn from that, learn from their mistakes, and move forward. And so social media, is going to be a a great platform to implement 2018, and it will continue to be a better program as we move through this year. And so I would highly recommend getting into that. If you want to learn more, this is just kind of a snapshot from a blog that we just released on our website titled Listen Up for the Best Social Media Strategy. You can certainly go there, and I've put the web address there and on the last slide to be able to access that. And feel free to go out there and get more in depth into this article. But with that, I will turn it back over to Kelly.
Matt, thank you so much for sharing that. And by the way, your slides always look so much better than mine. I need to get somebody like you to work on my slides. Anyway, just kidding about that part. But hey, I was talking to a fleet just yesterday, and they have over half their fleet is following them on Facebook. The drivers are, they're commenting on there, and the management staff there's like 5 of them that keep an eye on it, and 24/7 they like you would your regular Facebook, that they're commenting on there. And one thing about it, you kind of said it, if somebody says something bad on your Facebook, many times the drivers will address it and clean it up, and that has so much more value than you doing it. And even so, somebody like I say, if they get stupid, the other drivers will straighten them up on it and address it, and you don't have to say a thing. And so people are asking, we're not getting all these phone calls we used to get, about these type of issues. And the guy that's running the social media says, yeah, because they're putting it on our Facebook page, asking those questions and making those comments, and it's been very positive for the company. Right now, I can't say too much about it. He and I are talking. We may end up making that an Impact Advantage, an entire call around it and what they're doing and how it's impacting the morale, the turnover rate, and referrals of their company. So we were talking about that yesterday. Having said that, let's get into 3 things, 3 magic bullet points. And to lead up to the 3 magic bullet points, and by the way, I see Brian Lagana is on the call. And Brian, you probably heard me telling all these folks we need them to join the ATA Safety Management Council, and so stand by. Hopefully, we have lots of people now that'll be sending an email saying, "Kelly, have Brian call me. Let's get this thing going." So, because we certainly need their help on the council and in the recruiting and retention committee as well. So, but first off, on a recruiting call, you've heard me talk about this. Starting out the phone call, you can set yourself out, make a difference right there at hello. Most recruiting calls, when I call recruiters, it's recruiting, can I help you? And I say, yeah, I wonder if you're hiring drivers. And they go, yeah, we sure are. And then they go silent on me. And I go, well, what can you tell me about it? And they go, well, how much experience do you have? Do you have any tickets? Do you have any accidents? And some even still ask, do you have any criminal record, which is a bad idea. And then I go, answer those questions. And they go, well, if everything you're telling me is true, and then they go into some big old, basically a long list of company benefits that, frankly, they could just, mute themselves, hit the recording, and let it roll. I could replace most recruiters with an interactive voice response system, which, by the way, doesn't work. And that recruiting style doesn't either. Where, on the other hand, that hello, first off, smile. We can hear a smile a mile away, and or 10,000 miles away. And, do you sound like the type of person I want to be around? Or are you the type of person that, frankly, brightens up the room when you leave? So, so smile. And then, hey, Impact Recruiting, this is Kelly. Can I help you? Yeah, I want a few hiring drivers. I sure am. Who am I talking to? Oh, this is John. Hey, John, I appreciate you calling. Hey, by the way, how'd you hear about our company? Well, I saw it there on that Craigslist, and I was looking at your little website thing here and thought I'd just give you a call. Most people on that little website thing, we're talking about a landing page, will actually go ahead and fill out a little micro application, wanting information. That's the number one thing Matt sees drivers do. Secondly, they'll make a phone call. Thirdly, they'll fill out the full-blown application or attach their Intella app to it. But So the next piece there, he tells me how he heard about the company. So I say, well, tell me a little about yourself, where you've been driving, what you've been doing, or where you've been working, what you've been doing. When by saying the word working, I can't believe I slipped and said driving. Where you've been working, what you've been doing. By saying that, their answer tells me, are they inexperienced, a company driver, or an owner operator? So this is just, jump-starting the conversation. The neat thing is, it's a conversation. I'm bundling my questions so that it's conversational. Tell me a little about yourself, where you've been working, what you've been doing. His answer will be, well, I've been driving for the last 19 years, and I'm working over at Bubba's, and it ain't working out. Oh, really? Well, how long have you been there? Why are you thinking about quitting? And and so then, I'm sorry for, I probably have the same thing everybody in this country's got. And I know as I've traveled around, people have been talking about this whole sinus and chest thing going on. But hopefully I'm on the downhill side of it. So how long you been, his answer to that, when I say, how long you been there, why are you thinking about quitting? Well, I've been there for about, a year and a half. But man, the miles have been down, but the straw that broke the camel's back is I need to be home for my son's game, and they got me home all right, midnight. But somewhere in this conversation, as you're having this type of conversation, be listening. And I mean, if somebody says to me that they have been in the military, I'm going to immediately stop right then and say, John, I just want to tell you right now, regardless of how far this conversation goes, I appreciate your sacrifice, the sacrifice you and your family have made for our country and for the service to our country. Man, thank you very much for that. Secondly, somebody says, I've been driving for, 20 years. I got no tickets, no accidents, no criminal record. How about, wow, John, we just don't see that very often. Congratulations. Years ago, I was speaking at an ATA convention at the MC&E, and the out in the audience was the America's Road Team. And the America's Road Team are like the drivers of the year for the country. And to be on the America's Road Team, I mean, you've got to have millions of miles accident-free, work record that's impeccable, speaking skills. I mean, this is the top shelf of drivers in the entire country. And what an honor to be on the road team. And I knew that the road team was in the audience, and I knew one of them had worked at Averitt. Excuse me, I'm not talking about Averitt. Jevick Transportation. And so I said to him, so one of you worked at Jevick, didn't you? And the guy rose his hand. I said, would you mind coming up here for a minute? And he came up, and you can do this with the road team because they're good at impromptu speaking, And I said, hey, so you were at Jevick? And he said, yes. How many years were you there? And he said, and I said, man, wow, we just don't see people that have been that many years at one company very often in trucking. And man, how many miles accident-free do you have? And he told me, and it was millions. And I was like, wow, sir, I mean, that is quite an accomplishment. And by the way, being on road team as well, I'm just so, I just want to congratulate you from the bottom of my heart and so impressed. And he said, thank you. And I said, well, so you had to look for a job. You're working somewhere now, aren't you? And he said, yes, I am. And I said, well, what made you choose to go to work for that company? Well, the first thing he said was, well, they contacted me back. I left the message for them, and they actually called me back. Guys, we do surveys of drivers that applied for a company but didn't go to work for them. And so companies have us called in to find out why. And the number one reason we get for why they didn't go to work for that company is because nobody contacted me. And folks, it's the same true the same thing's true when I do my undercover trucker. The majority of the time, I do not get called back by the recruiter after they've told me to go fill out an application, and then they call me back. They don't do it. So, and that's another subject altogether. But showed respect and appreciation. Here he is, America's Road Team Captain, and he applied for numerous companies and never got called back. And only one actually said, wow, congratulations on, the accident-free, the miles that you have accident-free. Now, folks, You've had drivers tell you they don't have tickets. You've had drivers tell you that they don't have criminal, and so on and so forth. But you know what? This guy's name is Bill Smith. He's not John Adams who lied to you. His name is Bill Smith. We've got to get our recruiters to treat drivers based on who they are, not who somebody else was. And so when somebody says that they have that type of record, show appreciation and respect for it. That is huge. It makes it personal. Second is humor. One time I heard, I was talking to a driver and his wife was in the background, asking questions and saying things as well. And I said, hey, do you have another extension? I'd be glad to talk to both of you. He said, sure. And she got on the other line and she said, I sure hope you can get him hired because he's eating me out of house and home. And I said something about, so you're telling me that he can eat more groceries than a 48-foot reefer? And she said, absolutely. And I said, well, from now on, I'm going to call him Reefer Unit. And every time he'd call, he'd say, tell him it's Reefer Unit. One time she called me because he was on the road and there was some information I needed. And so she called to give it to me. And I think that was an example of the relationship as well, because normally the driver would just put off until he called. But she felt comfortable enough to call. She said, I need to talk to Kelly and tell him it's Reefer Unit's wife. It just stuck. And there was humor. Anytime you can put humor into the phone call, it also takes it to the next level. This last one, guys, I have never been called back by a recruiter that called me back when they said with information to, or an answer to a question that I had that they didn't know the answer to. You know how it is. A guy asks a question, you don't know the answer, or the recruiter doesn't know the answer, so they go, well, you know what, I'm not quite. A lot of times they say, well, I think it's. Well, if you say that, then you're opening yourself up to lie. Don't do that. Or they go, well, I'm not quite sure. Let me find that out and get back to you. I have never been called back by a recruiter with an answer that they didn't know during the call. On the other hand, what is my goal during this phone call? I want to take this phone call to orientation. At the end of this phone call, I want to have a plan of action. And first off, on the plan of action is a target orientation date. We're talking about you being in orientation on the 17th. Second is the plan of action to get there. I'm going to need to send you a full-blown application via this email link. You're going to fill that out and have it back to me this evening and call me tomorrow at 1 o'clock. How can they commit to the orientation date when they have unanswered questions? So one time I was up in Montana with the fleet, and I was, coaching recruiters, taking the phone calls, and I got to the owner-operator recruiter, and this guy, I answer the phone, and I'm just going to use my name, not the company name, but, Impact Recruiting, this is Kelly, can I help you? And he goes, yeah, what do you got? And I mean, just abusive. And I was like, holy cow, And I'll be honest, this guy was so aggressive, so angry, so, mean that I thought it was somebody downstairs playing games. When I was in the Coast Guard and doing federal drug interdiction, when we do mock boat boardings, every time somebody's going to shoot at you, somebody's going to fight you. I mean, this thing's going to go, somebody's going to get in the water. I mean, somebody's going overboard on this thing every time. And so that's what I thought was going on here. This is a mock phone call. Somebody's downstairs thinking, oh, we're going to have some fun with Kelly. But I wasn't sure. So I had to ride, And so I was like, well, appreciate you calling. Who am I talking to? John. Well, John, appreciate that. Hey, how'd you hear about our company? The newspaper. And I said, well, sir, would you mind telling me which paper I really need to track, or where our calls are coming from, what's working, and kind of helps me also know where you're from if you're reading your local newspaper. He said Boston. Well, folks, I'm gonna tell you right there, it explained a lot. Not to totally if anybody on the call from Boston, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, Matt, help me, I'm in trouble. Anyway, so Boston, and so I said, tell me a little about yourself. I don't want to care about that. Tell me what you got. And so I said to him, sir, the reason that I ask you that question is because to me, this is two people talking, and I understand that you're a real person with real needs and real challenges, and And that's just a way for us to have to start a conversation to find out what your needs are. And hey, if as we have this conversation, we'll know if it's a good fit. If it's a good fit, then man, I'd like for you to be here. If it's not a good fit, maybe I can recommend somewhere that it would be a good fit for you. And he kind of settled down just a little bit because I'm talking to him as a person. And then so he answered a little bit of a question. And so I gave him some information and we started a conversation. He started calming down. And then he'd ask a question. I didn't know the answer because I'm just there, acting like the recruiter in training. Because when I coach recruiters, I take the phone call, and as far as the caller is concerned, I am the recruiter in training, where actually what I'm doing is demonstrating my technique. And the recruiter didn't know the answer. So I said, well, hang on a second. Let me get somebody on the phone that can help us. And we got hold of the operations manager and conferenced them in, and man, he knew the answer. And so then, thank you very much. And you can just tell this guy's, calming down. And so we got to talk, and next thing you know, we got to get to finance department. This guy had questions. You just don't get asked. And so, got the finance department on the phone, answered that question, and then, just kept going and ended up the operations again. I kid you not, we had to do like 3 experts on this thing. And finally, the guy takes a deep breath and says, all right, let me tell you what's going on. I've got 3 trucks and I am losing everything that I have. I can't afford to bring my trucks over if it's not everything that you say it is. So I'm going to bring one of my trucks over and he'll be there on the 17th. And if in a month it's everything you said it was, I'll bring the other 2 trucks as well. Guys, how in the world could he have made that decision to bring the 3 trucks over if he had unanswered questions? If every time we got to one of those points, I said, well, I'm not quite sure about that. Let me find out and I'll get back to you. Oh, I don't know about that. Let me get back to you. That's another good question, John. Let me write that down and I'll get back to you. That call is not going to come down to a point where he says, hey, I'm going to bring a truck and in 30 days I'll bring the others. So those are the 3 bullet points. Every time I have interjected these into a phone call, it takes that phone call to a whole nother level. If I sit and take 100 phone calls, folks, I end up talking to 100 people, having 100 unique phone calls, not one phone call 100 times. So with that, man, I tell you what, 2018 is absolutely going to be a phenomenal year. It has already started out incredible. And we need the drivers, to grow our fleet and to haul all the freight that we have, sitting on our doorstep and in our system. And so utilizing these type of techniques will get you there. So if you have any questions, please feel free to email those to me, and I'll get that back to you. If I can help you folks in recruiting and retention or e-learning, Matt is, I tell you, he's a big help to my clients with his advertising expertise, and I don't take lightly the investment that Matt makes every month to be on this call. If you need help finding drivers, it all starts with the advertising, and Matt Lee's the guy to call. With that, folks, thank you so much, and look forward to our next Impact Advantage phone call in February.